Hi, this is Jitesh Satyan. WhatsApp number +91 965 66 11 829. So in this talk we will discuss the common pattern mostly used as a baseline in most tantric schools to explain manifestation. So this is covered in three levels: supreme consciousness, the veiling power of Maya, and individual consciousness. So the concepts or elements from supreme consciousness perspective in the pure category are divided into 5. The first one is Prakasha or Shiva Tattva. The I or subject side of experience is Prakasha or Shiva Tattva. This is pure consciousness which does not associate itself with anything, or in other words, it is without any objectification. The second in the category is Vimarsha or Shakti Tattva. This or object side of experience is Vimarsha or Shakti Tattva. Shiva or pure consciousness becomes aware of itself or himself with his power or its power, Shakti, of consciousness or awareness. Like a mirror makes a person see himself or herself, or eyes helping the person to see his or her body parts. Similarly, the Vimarsha or reflection as power of pure consciousness is what presents the subject to itself as an object for experience. The third is Sadashiva Tattva, the I am this side of experience. Here significance is on the subjective side, I am this. The act of seeing himself or herself or itself in a mirror is a result of desire to manifest. The power predominating here is the power of desire, Ichcha Shakti. The desire to manifest, I am this. The fourth is Ishvara Tattva, the this am I side of experience. Significance is on the objective side. Shiva seeing himself with his power, Shakti, like a person seeing his reflection, gets an understanding of the infinite possibilities of manifestation. This understanding is what is dominant in Ishvara Tattva. The power predominating here is knowledge, Jnana Shakti. The fifth in the pure category is Sadvidya or Shuddha Vidya Tattva. I and this experience is equally balanced in this Tattva, yet it is clearly distinguished. So, triggered by desire to perceive I and knowledge of infinite possibilities of this, the next step is to act on it. The power predominating here is action, Kriya Shakti. So, in nutshell, the pure consciousness Prakasha, the subject, experiences itself objectively with its power of consciousness, Vimarsha. Vimarsha is the power of Prakasha and not separate from it. The subject-object experience involves 3 stages. I am that reflection, stage 1. That reflection is me, second. And finally, both are one and the same. So these are the 3. Prakasha Vimarsha combination, which is considered the origin or source of manifestation, is termed differently in different schools of thought, with slight differences in the way each concept is defined. Basically, it is a male-female principle, or Shiva Shakti, or Supreme Purusha and Supreme Prakriti, or static and dynamic principle. All these being popular terminologies for this. In this talk, we continue the discussion on manifestation. We already covered the Shuddha or pure category relating to Supreme Consciousness. Before we get to the stage of individual consciousness, there is a stage of covering or veiling where ignorance is introduced. This covering is caused by Maya and its conjugas. The concepts in this stage of impure mix leading to limitations is explained through Maya. Maya Tattva. It makes the formless appear with forms. It makes the infinite seem finite. It causes viksheba, projecting, and it causes avarana, concealing. It causes ignorance at individual level called avidya. Maya discussed here is not illusionary, unreal or experientially real like the Advaita Vedanta point of view. So the Tantric point of view, Maya is mostly real. It is important to note that Maya is real in Tantric philosophy but still has two views existing on what it manifests. Some schools of thought consider the world as a creative imagination, Srishti Kalpana of Supreme Consciousness, inferring that the world is illusionary. So Maya is real, but world is unreal. While some other schools argue that Maya is real and the world it projects is also real. So according to Tantric non-dualists, Maya introduces dualistic experience to what is actually a unitary concept. So Maya makes one appear as many. How is this achieved? Kanchukas or clocks of Maya is what makes this happen. So this involves 5 tattvas. Kala tattva, which is the experience limitation in efficacy. Vidya tattva, where there is a limitation in knowledge that is experienced. Raga tattva, experience limitation in satisfaction caused due to desire. Kala tattva, here the experience of limitation is due to time. And Niyati tattva, where the experience of limitation is due to space. Okay. So in nutshell, Maya makes a limitless dot or a point appear as an object by introducing various dimensions. Manifestation from this point of view can be perceived as a spiral that originates from a dot, which disappears when the limiting dimensions are removed. In terms of the I and this classification, which we discussed earlier, we can say that this is seen as different from I due to Maya and its conjugas. From pure consciousness perspective, Maya is also its Shakti. Maya Shakti. So Maya being the veiling power of pure consciousness. However, from individual consciousness perspective, though everything is a result of pure consciousness, still Maya is not a part of the Shuddha Tattva category or the pure category, but is the power that introduces impurities and as a result hides individual consciousness from its true nature. For a spiritual aspirant, seeking his or her true self, Maya is to be overcome, or the power of Maya is to be overcome. Hence, avidya, introduced by Maya, the ignorance of the true nature or the ignorance of the self at an individual level, is a bad companion which is to be eliminated with wisdom. We already covered the pure category relating to Supreme Consciousness, the Maya category of impurity addition, and now we look at impure category relating to individual consciousness. Two important tattvas from individual consciousness perspective are Purusha Tattva and Prakriti. So the Purusha Tattva, this is individual consciousness that is limited by Maya. The I consciousness is completely finite for Purusha. Purusha is the experiencer or the subject of the manifested world, which is the object. Prakriti Tattva. Purusha experiences the homogeneous world called Prakriti as different from itself, though it is just the dynamic aspect of individual consciousness. Then Prakriti splits into mind and matter. Its effects are called Vikriti, which results in the multitude of creations or manifestations. Prakriti is thus the source for all the remaining tattvas of manifestation. It is important to note how Prakriti in general tantric philosophy, Shakta, Shaiva or Vaishnava relates to individual consciousness and differs from Advaita Vedanta point of Prakriti or the view of Prakriti. Even in terms of the tantric philosophy, the tattvas and how they are grouped has variations, as I mentioned about what all comes under Prakriti. Okay. Going with the general classification, the first product of individual consciousness or Purusha the subject and Prakriti the power to objectify is Buddhi, also called Mahat Tattva. Intellect or Buddhi in its initial state is mere presentation. So it's just presentation without identifying itself with the subject or object. So initially the Buddhi, intellect or Mahat Tattva is pure. This is quite important from the story perspective as well. So initially Buddhi, intellect or Mahat Tattva is pure. The second product is Ahankara, meaning in ego. Ahankara causes the Buddhi to identify itself as, let's say, X or Y, a particular identity. Ahankara ensures that the subject associates or identifies itself as a finite object. That is, I am a particular I and not all pervading I. So it tries to individualize. This identity created by Ahankara on Buddhi produces the third product, which is Manas, meaning mind, that desires to enjoy. It is interesting to note how Ahankara is presented as a Tattva compared to usual Vedantic classification of the six passions, where Mada Ahankara is one of the six passions: Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Ahankara and Malsarya. So we saw how the definition of Prakriti is different and how Ahankara is also considered different, because in one of the earlier talks we discussed Prakriti in detail while giving the details in decoding of Devi Mahatmya. Hence, those details in terms of Advaita Vedanta point of view of Prakriti is not discussed in detail. Okay, so creation or manifestation itself started as a result of desire, Ichha Shakti, the manifested forms of individual consciousness identifying itself as finite. So this needs some means to satisfy the desire. So the remaining tattvas include elements of perception, the Jnanendriyas, elements of action, Karmendriyas, and gross body made of 5 elements: space, air, fire, water and earth. After creation process complete, the Shakti now coils back in the individual level and sleeps in the last earth center called Mooladhara Chakra. The energy of Shakti which sleeps or remains in potential form in every individual manifestation is called Kundalini Shakti. And the spiral which we discussed in last talk, the spiral of manifestation, as manifestation spirals out from a point that we discussed in earlier talk, in starting of manifestation associated to Shiva is called Mahakundalini. So there is a difference between individual Kundalini Shakti and Mahakundalini, which is the source for spiraling out of manifestation of the world. Hope the discussion on manifestation in Tantra has given a brief understanding of the thought process behind Kundalini awakening in individual and causing the energy, the individual Kundalini which lies dormant in the Mooladhara, causing it to get activated and making this energy to rise up and merge with its source to lose the limited identity of the self is the fundamental goal of Tantra, where the aspirant is able to realize his true self. In this talk, we conclude on the topic of manifestation. So concepts like one order of reality, the pure order without limitation, giving rise to another order of reality, the impure order with limitation, and all manifestations of impure order remaining within the pure order before manifestation or dissolution. That is manifestation from a pure source and dissolution back might seem gibberish and events in a fantasy world for a novice in the spiritual thought. So a practical example will probably help in understanding the fundamentals. So in transmission holography, as in a hologram, when you actually try to illuminate a holographic film with a laser beam of light, you will be able to see three-dimensional images. So that is a transmission hologram. So in transmission holography, when a coherent beam of light illuminates a two-dimensional holographic film, a recorded holographic film, it projects three-dimensional images of the object recorded in the holographic film. By changing the angle of the beam, different three-dimensional images can be projected based on the angle used in recording. So in a transmission holographic two-dimensional film, so it's a two-dimensional order of reality. It can be compared to the pure order in Tantric philosophy. The various manifestations of three-dimensional images that can be projected are held. So the three-dimensional order of reality can be compared to the impure order of manifestations. So holographic film show coherent light and three-dimensional world gets projected. The two-dimensional film appears to have images like intersecting lines and dots printed on a film. It's called a fringe pattern, and it appears completely different from the three-dimensional image it projects with the aid of light. So similar to coherent light and holographic film, Shiva and Shakti can remain as a separate order of reality in relation to the world they manifest, and at the same time be the source of all manifestations. Just like it would be hard to teach a first grade student the theory of holography, the underlying philosophy in spiritual thought is also imparted only after evaluating the maturity of the aspirant. So coming back to the story in Tripura Rahasya, this basic understanding of manifestation from Tantric context is enough to start decoding the story narrated by Hemalekha. Some of the deeper concepts around sense organs, prana or the life force relevant to the story are discussed while decoding the story. Would like to remind you that what was discussed is just a common outline of Tantric philosophy, and variations exist in different schools of thought and within the same god or goddess cult itself. It is not just in the creation process where different opinions are held, but even on the reason for creation there are different points of view. The Pashupata system in Shaiva cult hold the view that Shaiva's creation is a divine play. So the creation is the result of divine play. That is the thought process which Pashupata system follows. However, Shaiva Siddhanta system in Shaiva cult itself opposes this view, saying that this opinion would make Shiva an Unmada or an insane person doing things for personal joy. Again, dualistic schools and qualified monastic schools try to establish a Swami Bhritya or a master-slave relationship between God and his or her creations, which is opposed by non-dualistic schools of thought. So, as we discussed in earlier talks itself, there are variations in opinion within Shakta schools. One view that Shiva and Shakti can be considered as tattvas, and another opposing it, saying that that would bring in limitations once we actually have Shiva and Shakti as tattva. So do keep in mind the general outline discussed, and that would be helpful in analyzing the story. In this talk, we start with the story narrated by Hemalekha. So Hemalekha narrates a story in which she is also a character and asks her husband to contemplate on the story to understand its inner meaning. So now I'll call out the different characters in the story as discussed in chapter 5 of this scripture along with its inner meaning as suggested in chapter 8 of the same scripture. So you can use this talk as a reference so that in case you get confused by the name of the characters in the talks that we are going to have, you just need to listen to this talk for a recap of the inner meaning of each character. Okay. So the first character, my mother. When Hemalekha says my mother in the story, Hemalekha's mother, the meaning in Sanskrit, there is nothing specific, so no name specified for this character. There is no separate name specified for this character. Hemalekha just uses the term my mother throughout the story. The inner meaning of what the character represents, as outlined in chapter 8, is that it corresponds to Supreme Consciousness, goddess Tripura, which is considered as Supreme Consciousness from the context of Tripura Rahasya. Okay, the second character, I, in the story. So whenever Hemalekha uses the term I, again there is no name specified, separate name specified in the particular story for which we need to call out the meaning of that Sanskrit term. So this corresponds to individual consciousness. Okay. The third character in the story is Shunya. So the character name Shunya, and it's the meaning in Sanskrit of Shunya means zero or empty, and the inner meaning is avidya. Ignorance of self is the inner meaning. So name Shunya corresponds to inner meaning avidya. The fourth character is just mentioned as Hemalekha's companion. So since we are using the term Hemalekha's companion, there is no specific Sanskrit meaning to be given, and this corresponds to buddhi or intellect. So Hemalekha's companion is buddhi. The fifth character is mood, which in Sanskrit means a fool, and the inner meaning of it is Mahamoh or Ahankara, the great delusion from egocentricity. The sixth character, Asthir. The character name is Asthir, and Sanskrit meaning of Asthir is unstable. And the inner meaning, which is outlined in chapter 8, is it corresponds to Man, the mind. So Asthir is the character and the inner meaning is mind. The seventh character, Chabala. Chabala, Sanskrit term means always changing or fleeting, and the inner meaning of that is Kalpana or thought. So the character Chabala actually has an inner meaning of Kalpana or thought. Okay. The eighth character or character set is 5 sons of Asthir and Chabala. So they just mentioned as 5 sons of Asthir and Chabala. They don't have any specific names mentioned. and they correspond to 5 sensory inputs: hearing, taste, sight, touch and smell. Their houses are the sense organs. And the 9th character is Mahashana. So this term in Sanskrit means voracious. And the inner meaning is Asha, meaning desire. The 10th character is called Jwalamukh, which in Sanskrit means fire-faced or a volcano. And the inner meaning is Krodh or anger. So the character Jwalamukh, inner meaning anger. The 11th character is Nindyavrit. Sanskrit meaning is bad attitude, and the inner meaning is lobh or greed. The 12th and final character, the name of the character is Prachar, which means constant flow, and the inner meaning of the character Prachar is prana or life breath or the life force. Jivan, prana is what is conveyed by the character Prachar. So you would have noted how well the characters are named to match to their inner meaning as well. Thanks for listening.